Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Joining the show today is Coach Blake Lee. Coach Lee is the head coach at Pretty Prairie High School in Pretty Prairie, Kansas. With 4 years total of coaching under his belt, he's now heading into year 2 at Pretty Prairie. Well, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be on.
So first, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your high school playing days and how you got into coaching football.
Yeah. So I went to Skyline High School out there west of Pratt and grew up around football when I was, real young. My uncle was the head coach at Skyline. So we followed the team everywhere. And even after he left, it was just, a love of the Thunderbird football program and everything that it stood for. So growing up, wanted to, play for them always. And then got into high school. And my freshman year, we had 9 seniors on the team. We went 6-3, missed playoffs by a game, and then after that, it was a big downhill decline. We went 0-9 my sophomore year, but my class was another big athletic class. We led us back to the playoffs our senior year. And then I ended up not going on to play football. I tore my knee up in my junior year and wanted to, take care of my body instead. So I ended up not doing anything in college. I just went to college to go to college. So
And where'd you go to college?
I went to Newman University in Wichita.
And did you jump right into education then? Like, is that what you knew you wanted to get into education?
I actually didn't. I actually have a biology degree with a sportsman minor. I originally thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. Um, was going through that and decided, I really wanted to coach. I really wanted to find a different way to do that. Um, so I do have that sportsman minor, but I did the transition to teaching program through Fort Hayes, and that's how I got into education.
Okay. Transition to teaching. So then when you got into teaching, then are you teaching based off of your first degree? Like, are you teaching science then?
Yeah, so I'm the high school science teacher here in Pretty Prairie. I started out teaching junior high while I was in Lincoln and moved up to high school my last year up there and have really enjoyed the high school kids. So that's what I do. I teach all the high school sciences here, all the way from freshman all the way up to the physics classes.
Okay, awesome. So here, let's jump back into football here. So this year, first year as head coach at Pretty Prairie. Basically, what would you say separates your program from others? So what's something you guys did kind of differently, even in your first year there at Pretty Prairie?
Yeah, so we're working on building that team. Um, there have been 4 coaches in the last 6 years. I'm the fourth coach in 6 years to come through here. After they had a coach for I think a span of 17 years, they had one coach for 17 years, and so we're really working to build that team aspect. You know, when we'd have water breaks at practice, we would seniors would ask freshmen. They'd have a question of the day to talk about and discuss, and then they had to tell what their partner said, and just to get to know each other better, get to know the team better, become that team. And that was my big focus this year was becoming a team. Um, and I think we did that really well. And then we had a bunch of seniors this year. And so we were pretty high in experience. And so those were 2 of our big things that we relied on this year.
Okay. Talk a little bit more about that. So as far as this season, what'd you learn most about this team and would you change anything if you could go back and redo this year? Just talk about this year.
Absolutely. We had our struggles this year. When you go through this many coaches in this short a span, um, these kids have played. I was the third coach that the seniors had played for, and so we had our struggles. We went 4-5. If you look at the Keisha scorebook, we went I think 2-7. We ended up having to forfeit all of our district games. We had some off the field issues, and actually canceled one of our district games. And Keisha policy says you cancel one district game, you forfeit all of them. And it was our first one. Um, and so we weren't eligible for the playoffs. We ended up winning 2 of those games that we forfeited. But absolutely, there were things that happened. Um, that just derailed our season real quick in the blink of an eye. Um, just because the culture here isn't where it needs to be. It's not where it used to be. And so there's definitely things I would go back and change. There's different ways I'd coach, different different things I do against different teams, different things I do off the field. But I think just the biggest thing is just putting a little more time into caring and loving these boys. You can't do that too much. Um, and showing them that I was there to care. I was there for them. Um, I was working with, moving into the school, moving into my house, doing all this stuff. And I felt like I didn't quite, you know, give as much time as I could have to the boys. It was all focused on schemes. And, I'm a new head coach, so I'm focused on this and that. Um, I think there should have been some time that I should have just been there for the boys a little more.
Well, and like you said, that's a huge thing to learn from and take forward with you in your first year. But definitely that the struggles and the consistent change, that's tough. And obviously it reflected into, like you said, some off the field issues. But with all that change, showing that you love and care for them. I mean, that's probably something that they're not used to since 4 coaches in 6 years that they don't know if somebody's going to stick with them. So, but yeah, I think that consistency and some of the things you're doing going forward, that's definitely going to help too. Piggybacking off of that then, so what are you looking forward to most then going into next year?
I'm looking forward to moving into like a more player led team. There was a lot of me dragging, people along, dragging these seniors, some of the senior boys, some of the younger kids along. It was a lot of times that it felt like pulling teeth. And I think we're going to be moving more towards a player led team. And, not that coaches don't need to do that because they do. There's times when they need to say, all right, we got to go. We got to go. But um, this year, I have two seniors and a junior that are stepping into these leadership roles that they didn't feel like they necessarily could step into when they're playing behind six seniors, five seniors, and not even playing behind, playing alongside. Um, I just felt like they felt like their voice wasn't heard being behind these seniors. And I really think that they're going to step up into new leadership positions. One of them, he was our starting quarterback this year, and I just felt like his voice wasn't heard. He felt like his voice wasn't heard. And so I think he's ready to step into that leadership role. I don't know if he'll be playing quarterback again, but he's going to be a big position, carrying the ball a lot, touching the ball every play. And I think he's ready to be that leader. And then I'm looking forward to, just bonding with these kids some more. It was so much focused on the change and, getting comfortable here. And now I'm comfortable and I think I can just let myself go and just coach again. And I'm excited to do that. I'm ready to just get out there and coach and not worry about everything else going on.
Yeah, that's awesome, coach. I mean, that's obviously a great thing that you're now more comfortable after going into your second year there for sure. And then so back to the leadership, do you do anything specific to develop that leadership or anything specific that you're going to try to do to try to, promote that leadership within your team?
Yeah, so I found a leadership class online and I can't think of who it's through right now. But it was just like a 6 week a free leadership course that I've been doing with three of my non-track athletes. Um, as much as I would love to have every kid out for track, there's definitely those ones that butt heads against it. Who knows why? They all have their different reason. But with those kids, I've just been doing this leadership course, and I think it's been really eye opening. um, one of my favorite lessons from it was be the thermostat, not the thermometer. You want to set the tone. You want to be the thing that sets the tone, set the leadership, not the thing that says whether it's going good or bad. And I think that really hit one of the younger one, the junior. He's going to be a junior. I think that one really hit him, and he was like, that makes a lot of sense. And it's just getting these ideas of leadership to these young men in different ways. Not everybody learns the same way. We know that as teachers. And so portraying that leadership to them in different ways. And that one really hit me and I think it really hit him as well. And so that was really cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the leadership class. If you figure out who does that, you might have to share that with me if you wouldn't mind. All right, now I'm going to jump back a little bit here, but you're talking about leadership and how you can impact your players. And so I'm just wondering, was there anybody that you looked up to or any coaches or mentors that pushed you, into this path of becoming a football coach? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So both of my high school football coaches, uh, Coach John Novotny, who used to be the head coach at Skyline, and has since stepped back to Farmore, and then Coach Andrew Nation, who's the head coach at Skyline now. Both of them and their passion for the game, and just being able to be around, seeing them be around all these high school boys, these young men, every day, and how they coached me. And I worked with both of them a lot in individual sessions, team sessions, things like that while I was playing. And they just showed me how much impact you can make on a kid, showed me how much impact you can make on these players that you have. And so they both pushed me into this, this profession that I love. And then I've watched my uncle coach as well. He started off at an 8-man coach at Skyline, like I said, and has since moved up, and he's coached at Andover High, Collegiate High School. And then he's moved up on even further, and he's helped with the Wichita Wild, Wichita Force. He was the interim head coach at one point. Um, and so just watching these guys and have their impact they had on me, and then seeing my uncle, love football as much as he does, and uh, it's just really pursued me to take this job on head on and really enjoy it. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And anytime you can have a family member providing that much into the game and interact with and learn more from. But I like your path too, though. Just, obviously starting in school as a science major in biology and then finding your way back into education to be able to impact kids. So that's awesome.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so you were talking about some of your kids going out for track and not going out for track also. But my next question is stemming from that. How do you feel about, athletes competing in multiple sports? What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. Um, these athletes, even especially in our small schools, but even at bigger levels, I think. I mean, they're not football players; they're athletes, and they need to be athletes in other sports. And what I love even more is I love seeing that kid who isn't necessarily the stud on the football team or the stud on the track team. He goes out and he drops 30 points in a game in basketball, and he's one of the better players on the basketball team, or he's just a role player on the football team, or maybe vice versa. This kid who is a all league, all district, all state O lineman goes out for basketball, and he's there to be a role player. He's there to play defense on the big kids. We have a really, really good example right now. All-state volleyball player, all-state basketball player signed to go play basketball at the next level is out for track because they needed her in a relay. She's not the best track athlete, but they needed another person for a couple of relays, and so she's out. She's competing in track for that. And especially at these small schools, it takes every kid in every sport. That being at the Osborne and here at Stafford, and it's just so crucial to have every kid out, because if you don't, you're losing 10%, 5%, whatever it is, of your boys. If you have 20 boys and four of them don't go out, that's a huge number, even though it's only four kids not going out. So it's just so crucial to have every kid out for everything.
Yep, absolutely. And I like what you were saying there where, basically becoming a role player, or maybe you're the star player in one sport, but a role in another. That's that team bonding and that team chemistry right there. Because kind of you scratch my back, I scratch your. If I'm willing to put in the effort and be a role player on your team, you come help me and be a role player on my team. Whatever the case
Yeah.
is. That's awesome. And especially like you said at these small schools, you need everybody out. You really do. I know we struggled with girls athletes and going out for basketball this year, and it's tough to practice if you don't have 10 girls, which we didn't. So I mean, yep, it's a struggle, but definitely. And I think that piggybacks right off into your player led stuff going forward is if you can get kids to get out of their comfort zone and do something that they might not necessarily want to do, but they're going to do it to help the team, then yeah, definitely. That's where you get that player led team.
Yeah, for sure.
So here, then let's talk a little schemes here. So then just talk about like your go-to run play.
Yeah, our go-to run plays an outside zone, and we're gonna a stretch zone, and we're gonna pound it at you all night long. We're big on We're calling just a direction for the offensive line, and they're figuring out who they go get off that direction. If we're reach blocking, if we're doubling, we're chip blocking up to the next level. And then with our running back, we're talking bang, bend, or bounce, depending on your read. So on our outside zone, we are reading that tight end. Our eyes are on the tight end. If he gets out and gets his man, we're bouncing that thing to the edge because it should be one-on-one versus somebody. If he loses, if the tight end loses his fight, just gonna end up shot putting him out towards the sideline, and we're just gonna bang it up that B gap. And then if our guard ends up losing his battle, let's say we're against a forefront, he loses his battle and can't get to the outside of his guy. We're just gonna go back and we're gonna bend it backwards, look for that cutback lane. And we talk about in 8-man football, there's cutback lanes galore all the time. Not necessarily even when teams over pursue. I mean, obviously when they over pursue, but even when they don't over pursue and they're doing their job, there's just so few people on the field comparatively that the cutback lanes are there for days. And so we harp on our running backs, hit that initial gap, and then we're looking to cut back to the opposite side of the field.
Nice. Yeah, I love outside zone. We actually did predominantly inside zone. If we were running
Gotcha.
the outside zone, it would have been more of like a toss. We would still have either the bang or bounce. And honestly, on our inside, I just give them bang or bend. But I like
Gotcha.
that with the outside zone having all three. I mean, would you say then you're like more of a run heavy team, or what would you consider your offense?
Yeah, so we're predominantly run heavy. Probably 65-35 is my goal for every game. Obviously that you never get right on the money. Um, but even with our passes, we're running a lot of screens, we're running a lot of short just swing passes to get the ball to our athletes in this open space. Um, if we're talking passes over 5 yards, it's probably only 15% of our playbook, 15% of our play calls.
Mhm.
And those are mostly counter calls against, they're flying up so hard. We're running a pop pass to the tight end over the middle. Um, just things like that. Most of those long pass plays are counter plays. Yeah. So we're predominantly run. And then even when we throw the ball, it's a lot of bubble screens, wide receiver screens, swing passes, things like that.
Okay. Yep. So here then talk a little bit more about the outside zone, kind of like your O-line teaching point. What are your words or rules as far as teaching the outside zone? And then do you guys ever read it on your outside zone, or is it just a true outside zone with the cutback from the running back? What kind of talk about that?
Yeah, the read is mainly the cutback from the running back. We try and keep it simple. Especially in the first year. You don't want to throw too much at them. I think we'll be able to expand upon it this year. But um, so we start with a bucket step. We always bucket step to the side of that we're going. And then we're shoot stepping and we're punch stepping. So we're bucket, shoot, punch. And then from that point, if we've reached our guy, we're going to drive him back to the middle of the field. If we haven't reached him, we're taking that punch step and we are basically throwing a shot put. So if we're going right, we're taking our left hand, we're throwing a shot put into his shoulder pad, and then we're just driving him to the outside of the field. That way we know what we're going to do. If we can reach him, great. We're reaching him, we're hooking him back inside. If we can't reach him, we're punching him to the sideline. The running back's got to read it. And so it's giving these outs to kids that, maybe aren't the quickest. In the 8-man football game, we deal with the cards that we are dealt. And so we might not have the quickest, strongest, fastest guy. So it's given that kid that guard that might not be the quickest that chance that if he wins his battle, he knows what to do. But if he loses his one-on-one, he knows that he's just punching him and driving him straight to the sideline. And I think that's the main reason we did this. The bucket step, just to get over to that way, try and get that first step win. And then if we don't get that, we're just punching, driving him to the sideline.
Nice. Yep, I 100% agree, and that's kind of why we run zone also, because the O-line, they doesn't necessarily have to be, the biggest, strongest, best blocker or whatever. I mean, all your O-lines literally got to do is get their hands on them, and try to do that your
Yes.
bucket step and your punch step and all that, and then it's up to the back. He's the one that's accountable for making that correct read. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
rather than having your 5 or, 4, 3, however many O-linemen you have on your zone scheme, rather than holding all of them accountable, you just hold one guy. So I agree. So, coach, here, last question. Just biggest piece of advice to upcoming football coaches.
I would say learn how to break down film effectively. If you can't watch film with an effective mindset, you're just kind of wasting time. Um, I coached under Coach Dustin Petit at Lincoln, and that's what he taught me. He taught me how to break down film effectively, and it has been huge. He had a very defensive mindset. He played defense. He played linebacker in college at Sterling, and he just the way he broke down offensive film was incredible. And so I've taken that from him. And then the second is don't get in a hurry. Everybody wants to be the head coach. Everybody wants to do that. You know, and I think it kind of punched me in the mouth at first this year. You know, being that head coach isn't all the glitz and glamour that it's thought out to be, that the media makes it out to be, ESPN and all that. There's a lot of work involved, and so I love being a head coach, but at the same time, I would tell up and coming coaches, don't get in a hurry. It's okay to be in that assistant role. It's awesome. You get to do a lot of X's and O's, and that's your focus. And so those are my two biggest pieces of advice.
Awesome. Absolutely, coach. I agree. I love the don't be in a hurry because I always knew I wanted to be a head coach and I knew I'd get my chance one day,
Uh
but
huh.
I wanted to, be ready obviously when I got the chance and I bounced around and been at four schools now and coached for 7 years before I got my chance as a head coach. So, but yeah, and some people take way longer than that, or some people jump in as a coach
Absolutely.
right away. But
you're
absolutely.
gonna you learn so much coaching under these other coaches. There's a bunch of great 8-man coaches out there. And not even 8-man coaches, just other coaches to learn under. You know, I being at Pretty Prairie, Alex McMillan coached at Madison. He reached out to me because Pretty Prairie is where he graduated from, and so I got to pick his brain a little bit, and that was really cool to see too. There's so many helpful guys out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help either. If you're trying to figure out a scheme, you're trying to figure out something, what to do, reach out. People are gonna help you.
Yep, absolutely. And then another thing you said there, asking for help. Absolutely. I felt at first, when I first got into coaching, I thought, "Oh, I know it all," and obviously I had no
Yes,
clue. And then I started to reach out and try to learn more. You just start building connections with other coaches, and they will help you. Coaches are willing to share and help you most of the time, and if not, you can always ask somebody else, so but
absolutely. Worst they're gonna do is say no.
exactly. All right, well, coach, thanks again for taking the time to come on here. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you ever have a question for me, feel free to comment down below on this video or visit my bio to shoot me an email. If you've learned anything or enjoy any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in.